How we doing, everyone? Hope you're all well. Now listen, yesterday you might have saw a video that I did, the 5 biggest UFC fails. And yes, that sounded like a hater. What I was doing was talking about 5 people that the public really wanted to see in the UFC, but then when they crossed over, when they came here, when they were signed by the promotion, it didn't really pan out, and it was a little bit of a disappointment. And again, I'm not trying to sound like a hater, just an interesting video idea. However, somebody in the comment section said, Mike, why don't you counter this video by doing top 5 UFC hype trains that lived up to the hype? So first of all, there you go. I mean, I'll listen to the community here on the channel. Whatever you want, I will deliver. And secondly, yes, I do want to do that as well, because I like to celebrate success. I respect people on the list yesterday, the people on the list today. I respect everyone that has the courage, the bravery to step foot in that octagon, because it's not easy. And whether it's a mat at a local jiu-jitsu tournament, a boxing ring, whatever it is, if you compete, then you have my respect. So today we're going to go through a list, 5 people that were hyped up by the public, that the public were dying to see inside the UFC, and when they signed with the promotion, they more than lived up to the hype and sold a tremendous amount of pay-per-view buys and became some of the biggest stars in the sport of mixed martial arts. So let's get into the list. Number 5, Quinton Rampage Jackson. Professional MMA record, 38 wins, 14 losses with a massive 20 knockouts. Listen, Quinton Rampage Jackson used to be a teammate of mine, so I know this guy very, very well. And let me tell you, one of the most charismatic, one of the most powerful, the hardest hitting, the hardest slamming people that the UFC ever signed. Started his career pretty much out in Japan, where he made a name for himself. And out there, the Japanese absolutely loved him. They loved his style, they loved his sense of humor, but more importantly, they loved his fights, because when he competed, Rampage was an absolute savage inside the octagon. Massive knockout power, and if he managed to pick you up in the air and slam you, well, then it was all said and done. It was all over. Just ask Ricardo Arona when he locked up that triangle, picked him up in the air, slammed him down, little elbow, and that was that. That was all she wrote. Now, of course, you know, the UFC were watching, the world were watching, and always thinking, how would the Pride fighters do in the UFC? And of course, one of the first that we saw to come over was Quinton Rampage Jackson. But before he did, the UFC sent over Chuck Liddell to Pride, and Quinton Rampage Jackson got the job done. Beat Chuck Liddell down pretty savagely. However, when he came out of Pride, he signed with the WFA. Now, this is how bad Dana White wanted to sign him. This is how bad he wanted him fighting in the UFC. He actually bought the promotion just so he could get Rampage out of his contract. He made his UFC debut against Marvin Eastman. I was there. I saw that one. Took him out in the second round. And then, in the next fight, he got a title shot against Chuck the Iceman Liddell. And of course, when the fight happened, it didn't take long. Quinton Rampage Jackson knocked out Chuck Liddell the Iceman in 1 minute, 53 seconds of just round 1 to become the light heavyweight champion of the world in only his second fight. So talk about living up to the hype. Then after that, he went out there, he defended the belt against Dan Henderson, and then sadly lost to Forrest Griffin. But the career wasn't over. He went on to have an amazing career and some great wins, beat people like Keith Jardine. He got revenge against Wanderlei Silva, a massive pay-per-view fight with Rashad Evans, Matt Hamill, Lyoto Machida, and he went on, still fighting to this day, I believe, almost retired, might have 1 or 2 more. But in terms of pay-per-views, this man was a box office smash, and when you add up all the UFC fights together, he sold 4,330,000. That is a lot of pay-per-view buys. That's a lot of cash. Number 4, Daniel Cormier. Professional MMA record, 22 wins, 3 losses, 10 knockouts, and 5 submissions. Listen, Daniel Cormier, we all know him as a great commentator now, just recently got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and rightly so. But this man was a lifelong wrestler. Of course, we know this. It's all he talks about. He loves the sport of wrestling, and he still gives back to the wrestling community these days. Now, he was an Olympic hopeful, and then after his wrestling career, turned his attention to mixed martial arts, like a lot of wrestlers do, because it's one of the best bases to have. Now, he got off to a fantastic start. He had a couple of fights, and before we know it, 4 fights in, this man is already fighting for Strikeforce, which at the time was one of the huge promotions. Now, Strikeforce put on the Heavyweight Grand Prix, and DC was an alternate, right? But he got brought in, and what did he do? He ended up winning the entire thing. He beat some legendary fighters like Antonio Silva, Jeff Monson, and Josh Barnett. Of course, when the UFC bought out the promotion, when they bought Strikeforce, they inherited all the fighters, and one of the biggest stars that they got out of that promotion, of course, was Daniel Cormier. He started off in the heavyweight division, having some tremendous wins over Frank Mir, Roy Nelson, but then he dropped down to light heavyweight. He beat Patrick Cummins, Dan Henderson. He lost to John Jones, but still went on to have a great career. Anthony Johnson, Alexander Gustafsson. Anderson Silva, Anthony Johnson again, right? And of course, he became the light heavyweight champion of the world. He did have those losses to John Jones, and that will always be kind of the story of DC. He will always be linked to John Jones, rightly or wrongly. But forget about that for a second. Let's focus on the greatness. He became the light heavyweight champion. Then he stepped up to heavyweight to fight Stipe Miocic in a fight that he had to have been a massive underdog. And what did he do? He gets the job done, knocks him out in round 1. And not only did he become a double champ, he actually defended the heavyweight belt against Derek Lewis as well. And then sadly lost to Stipe Miocic in the rubber match. Now, in terms of pay-per-views, this man was also a big box office smash. People could not get enough of DC. Throughout his UFC tenure, the man sold 4,515,000 pay-per-view buys. Not bad at all. Number 3, Brock Lesnar. Professional MMA record of only 5 wins with 3 losses. And I know what you're thinking, Bisping, why would Brock Lesnar, the WWE wrestler, be on this list alongside all these legendary fighters? Well, the answer's simple. It's simple. Listen, the fact that he didn't have so many fights, the fact that he was probably at a deficit, well, definitely at a deficit in terms of the other skills, jiu-jitsu, striking for sure, but he still managed to come over to the UFC, the best promotion in the world, and become the heavyweight champion in just a few fights. Come on, if that isn't living up to the hype, I don't know what is. All the WWE fans were just clamoring for Brock Lesnar to fight in the UFC, and as I say, lived up to all those expectations. Now, he was a tremendous wrestler at college, won all kinds of titles in the WWE, won all kinds of titles as well. I know nothing about WWE because I only like real fighting from real men. Just messing, no offense, all you WWE nerds and virgins. Yes, no offense.
Sounds like something a nerd or a virgin would do.
But still, Brock Lesnar, I mean, come on, made his UFC debut against Frank Mir. That didn't go his way, okay? Frank Mir was one of the best heavyweight ground specialists that we ever saw. For Brock Lesnar being the wrestler, he took him down and got caught in a knee bar. And then Brock Lesnar flipped out at Steve Mazzagatti because Steve Mazzagatti, bring it on, come on, didn't break up the fight quick enough, didn't call Frank Mir off, and he was worried that he could have had his knee ripped apart. However, he rebounded, and he rebounded in style. He came back and beat Heath Herring, right? Dominated him, and then he knocked out Randy the Natural Couture to become the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. And then, not only did he become the champ, he defended it twice. He defended against Frank Mir one more time, and then also against Shane Carwin. And of course, after that, he suffered a nasty defeat at the hands of Cain Velasquez. Free Cain. Yeah, because Cain Velasquez is one of the best heavyweights that we ever saw. No shame in that. So, in a very short amount of time, he came here, he conquered it, he became the champ, and he defended twice. Not bad at all. And then when we look at the pay-per-view buys, the man sold an incredible, a staggering amount in such a short amount of time. 7,889,000 buys in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 or 8 fights. I mean, almost 8 million buys. I mean, come on, that is impressive. And that is what you call living up to the hype. Number 2, Anderson the Spider Silva. Yes, the legend with the record of 34 wins, 11 losses, 23 knockouts. And those 23 knockouts, some of them are some of the best knockouts that you will see in the entirety of mixed martial arts. Anderson Silva has wowed fans big time. Of course, comes from Curitiba, Brazil. Used to fight out of Shooter Box. Came over to Pride, made his name there, had some great wins, and then signed with Cage Rage in London. I saw him fight there a couple of times. I was the Cage Rage fighter. I was Cage Rage light heavyweight champion, and Anderson Silva put on some incredible displays of violence. The up elbow that he knocked Tony Strickland out was just crazy. The brutalization that he put on Lee Murray's legs, just kicked the shit out of his legs over 3 rounds. I mean, that was something to witness. And then he came over to the UFC. It was only a matter of time when he made his debut against Chris Lieben, the cat smasher, Chris the Crippler Lieben, as he went by sometimes. And Lieben actually said, listen, he's been fighting easier competition out there in Japan. When he comes to the UFC, he's going to find out that we don't go down quite as easily. Well, Chris was forced to eat those words because I think it was 43 seconds. Anderson Silva got the job done pretty quick. Chris Lieben could always take a shot. I fought him at UFC 89, right? But Anderson Silva just destroyed him. You know, it was one-way traffic from start to finish. But that was the start of a tremendous run that Anderson Silva went on. Yes, he became the middleweight champion when he destroyed Rich Franklin. Then he rearranged his face or his nose in the rematch. Went up to light heavyweight, beat a couple of guys up there, put on that incredible display, Matrix-like reflexes against Forrest Griffin, and of course defended the belt more than anyone else in the history of the organisation. Along the way, beat some tremendous fighters. Chael Sonnen, a couple of wars with him, Yushin Okami, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, Damian Maia, Forrest Griffin, Talis Lightis, Patrick Cote, James Irvin, Dan Henderson, Rich Franklin, Nate Marquardt, Travis Luter, Rich Franklin, Chris Lieben. That was the debut. I mean, come on. What a career this man had, and what a star he was as well. I remember waiting up all night to watch Anderson Silva fight when I lived in the UK. They still show the fights at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I would always stay up to watch him. He would destroy his opponent super quick and I'd go to bed. Really pissed off because I'd stayed up all night to watch that and he'd take him out in like 30 seconds. I might as well not bothered. But still, the man is an absolute legend. Yes, the end of his UFC career didn't end the way that he would have liked. But still, it is what it is. When he came to the UFC, he lived up to the hype and then some. And of course, the man was a pay-per-view sensation. 19 pay-per-view fights. And he sold, according to Wikipedia, 9,635,000 buys. That's incredible.
It's normal.
Number one, Conor, the notorious one, McGregor. Yes.
The notorious Conor McGregor!
Of course, if we're talking living up to the hype, if we're talking pay-per-view buys, if we're talking coming to the UFC and living up to it and wowing audiences, you got to have Conor McGregor on this list. Professional MMA record, 22 wins, 6 losses, and out of those 22 wins, 19 of them came by way of knockout. Prior to being with the UFC, Conor McGregor fought in Cage Warriors, much like myself. He was a 2-weight division champion, lightweight champ, featherweight champ, and a lot of people were talking about him. The hype was starting early. MMA media was getting messages. Ariel Helwani was talking about him. Dana White was talking about him. People were tweeting daily saying, you have to sign this kid out of Ireland. Sign him, he did, and he made his UFC debut in 2013 against Marcus Brimage, and the show got started early. Round 1, uppercuts, took him out of there in absolute style, and that was the first of many electric performances that we saw from Conor McGregor. Now, as we know, he went through the featherweight division pretty easily, beat Dustin Poirier, he beat Max Holloway, Dennis Seaver, Chad Mendes, and of course, got a title fight against the King of Rio, Jose Aldo, when Jose Aldo was the man at featherweight, when he was defending the belt many, many times, and Conor McGregor took him out of there in just 13 seconds. Shocked the world, shocked everybody, shocked me. 13 seconds, I mean, come on. Now look, listen, I'm not the biggest fanboy of Conor McGregor, but you cannot deny what he's done inside the octagon, okay? It's as simple as that. He has brought electricity, he has brought excitement, and he has delivered fantastic fights and a lot of amazing knockouts as well. Now, of course, just being the featherweight champion, that wasn't enough. He moved up a weight division, took on Eddie Alvarez, and became the lightweight champion as well. I guess one of the only knocks was that he never defended the featherweight belt and he never defended the lightweight belt, but he certainly went on and provided a lot of great excitement inside the octagon, which is what we all want to see. Of course, when I fought Floyd Mayweather, did very good. Went 10 rounds with the guy before he got stopped by the referee, but still unbelievable in his first ever professional boxing fight. And as we know, he's still going, okay? He snapped his leg. He hasn't been around for quite some time, but he's coming back and he's talking about fighting Kamaru Usman. He wants to be a 3-weight division champion. I don't think he's got much of a chance of doing that, but still, the fact that he wants to do that, the fact that he's trying to achieve greatness, you have to respect that. Now, talking about respect, I mean, listen, we're talking about pay-per-view buys. We're talking about generating money. Nobody does it like Conor McGregor. As he said, when you fight him, it is red panty night, and that is an absolute fact, because when you look at these numbers, it's kind of staggering. In just 9 UFC pay-per-view bouts, he has sold 30,442,000 buys, and of course, 5,307,000 buys against that fight with Floyd Mayweather. So you put that all together, that's just under 19 million pay-per-view buys, which is quite something. It's incredible, it is. So there it is, there's a list. I just had to counter yesterday because I didn't want to come across as a hater, and I don't think I did in that video, but who else do you think should be on this list? Let me know down there in the comment section below. And that's about it. That's all I've got time for today. Hope you're well. Subscribe, ring the bell. I'll see you soon.